Hello.
How are you, Emily?
Good. How are you?
I'm well. I'm well. Are you securely in your placement now?
Yes, there was a little confusion this morning.
Oh,
But yes, I'm
okay. All right. Great. What grade level?
fourth grade.
Fourth grade. Okay. Perfect. 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 Yeah, that's a great grade level. I taught fourth grade. Well, I taught fifth, 4-5 combination several times, but fifth grade for 8 years and yeah, and a 4-5 gen ed fifth grade, and then a 4-5 um uh uh special day class for students with mild disabilities for another 4 years. So I like that grade level very much.
They're fun. They're a lot, but they're fun.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And this is your first um student teaching session, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, good. All right. Good, good. Hopefully it'll go well and you'll enjoy and learn a lot from your cooperating teacher.
Yeah,
Good.
she's really nice. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Hello. We'll wait a couple minutes before we jump in. I'm not sure how many people are going to join us, but it will be recorded. So if people can't on a particular Monday, it'll go out as an announcement to kind of, catch everybody up. But um, it's a good opportunity to ask questions as we walk through each template and the rubrics and things. So it'll be good. We'll wait just one more minute and then start in. So we have 10 of you actually. Five, well, I think it's down to four. I lost one of my multiple subject teacher credential, teacher candidates. And we have 5 or 6 ESN, extensive support need teacher candidates. So it's, and my multiple subject is upper elementary. So y'all are in that upper elementary, and then our extensive support needs could be anywhere. Right? Veronica, you're at the high
Yeah,
school.
I'm at a high school.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So it'll be an interesting group. We may, divide up into groups and kind of think through different things. And my ESN candidates, I'll be sharing probably separately or videos or something to give you some additional resources that you either just to remind you about some resources that we talked about in our instructional strategy course, or some cool things that just come along, that I find that might be helpful to y'all. So, but we'll go ahead and start today. Let me do a really quick prayer so we can just pray for our session and then we'll start. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this group of students and their dedication to be excellent teachers. Lord, we just pray that your blessing be on them as they finish the last few requirements of their credential successfully, Father. We just pray for safety and health for them during this term that um, will be full of different challenges and excitements and learning. So we just pray for your guidance and assistance in thy heavenly name. Amen. All right, so week one, we're going to jump in to like some of the first things that you need to think about, which is, hold on, let me see if I can go forward. No, it doesn't want to. If you can put your name in the chat, I know that I see all of you, but when I get off of this, I won't have always that recording. So put your name, in the chat, and realize too that maybe put your grade level. That helps me to know what age group you're working with is always helpful. I know my special education teacher candidates by heart, probably, but I don't know all of your, I don't remember all of your age groups necessarily. So that would help me. And then just remember, this is a safe place. There isn't any dumb question. If you're confused or unsure, ask, because it's easier to clarify versus remediate. So we just want to, just ask, because you are probably not the only one with that question. And I've been doing this for so long that it's easy for me to skip over something and I think it's like easy, or it's a given in my brain, but it's not always obvious. So it helps me to actually be prompted sometimes to answer those questions. So no worries at all. So our agenda today is just check in um, and see how you are with a couple of these first things that you are supposed to be doing, which is discussing with your cooperating teacher if you are in a traditional student teaching assessment place, that they know that you're doing this, right? And even if you're our ESN and you're an intern and you've been doing this a while, it probably helps for your administrator to know that you're doing it and that it's, one of the final things. And I've had people even, be able to have, kind of take a day if they have to get it done. Or if you have a ton of IEPs that they recognize you have a lot going on this term, it might be helpful for them to know. And to make sure that you have permission slips for video for your students. Either you've gathered them already or you've asked your cooperating teacher who is given permission, if or not. And if you don't have that, they don't have that, then see me and I'll direct you to where you can find permission slips. But it doesn't have to be anything special, and you're not turning those in. So it's just, you're just attesting on the website when you go to submit this assessment that the students who are videotaped or have given permission. Okay. And my ESN folks, because you can do this entire thing with one student. So if you're doing it with one student, make sure that that student has given you permission, because you are going to need to record them. So in that case, it does have to be someone who's giving you permission. Otherwise, that student your focus student doesn't have to be on camera unless he's your only one or she. All right. And then we're going to review template A, which I don't have the exact template yet, but it'll come. And discuss what they mean by some of the words and language on the form that you're going to be receiving. And we may not get to this idea of higher order thinking and academic language today, because we only have limited time, but that's something that you're going to be needing to use in your assessments. There's throughout both assessments, there's these three pieces are seen in each one of them, that culturally and linguistic resources or assets of the student, higher order thinking, and academic language is threaded through both of these assessments. So review those things if you're not clear, or we can problem solve related to our students, maybe who don't have great communication skills, and how do you get that piece done? Okay, so all right. So y'all kind of gone through the overview. We know that we're doing 3 to 5 lessons for a group of students and one focus student. That group of students, Emily, for you who are multiple subject, can be a small group. Could be your whole class, that's fine. Or it can be 2 or more students, and one of those students has to be your focus student. So 2 or more, I'd say a small group of 3 would be great, or a whole class. Probably. I mean, you could do 5, it doesn't matter. So just know that you don't have to do it for, the 30 students who are in your class if you don't want to, right? It can be a small group if you do rotations on a regular basis. And for our ESN folks, you can do it for a small group, or you can do it for one student at a time. So depending on the needs of your class and what works best for you and how you normally teach. Okay. And so that's who. What are you going to teach? So it's literacy, and it's 3 lessons that are kind of sequential, that build on each other. But they have to include foundational reading skills that are grade level. The standard is grade level. The goal can be modified to the needs of your students, and an additional theme from the ELA and ELD framework. So we'll talk about what that is in a bit. And it doesn't say it here, but you do have to demonstrate your ability to teach or to incorporate an ELD standard or goal. So for our ESN candidates, that's easy because all of your students also are learning English. Even if their primary language is English, they're learning to communicate more and more in English. All right. And so include that goal, even if you're still working with primarily English speaking students. All right. So 2 or more. And yeah, we're going to talk about what that means for foundational. So essentially, you have to have at least 3 different goals across your 3 lessons. And you can be working on all of those in an integrated way, or you can teach the foundational things first and then move forward. But in addition to those goals, you have that academic language piece. So that could be its goal by itself, right? Related to the content that you're teaching or whatever, but you do need to demonstrate that academic language. Let me pause a minute and see if there's questions so far. Anybody, be brave. You can also put them in the chat if you don't want to talk, but as long as I pull my chat up, which I don't have up right now. Let me get to it.
For the ELD standard, it doesn't then necessarily have to be a student that is an EL, even though they've been redesignated
No,
already.
it
Okay,
doesn't. It
okay.
doesn't. Yeah, yeah, because we're all working on English and longer communication and, longer sentences, writing, all of that we can easily work on. Okay, good question. Thank you. All right, so what do we have to know? This is your first template, your very first thing that you're going to be working on. And that's the work of this week, is to gather some of this information. And this is from the multiple subject one, and we'll look and see if it differs at all from the ed specialist one. But you're going to provide, the first template provides a context of your learning group. So if you're 3 students, 30 students, or you're 1 student, whatever, that you're going to be teaching. And it wants you to include details about the student's cultural and linguistic assets and or interest, learning needs, and other relevant observations or assessments. So you're collecting all this good stuff, right? So we're going to delve into what we mean by all of that in a minute, but age and grade range, that's simple. That's just a statement. Cultural and linguistic assets, that's really focused on the idea that students, we want to tie into students' assets, not just think of their learning needs, which is really, sometimes we're going to pick a focus student and we know that he's got these deficits, and we just zero in on deficits without thinking about things that they know a lot about or how to capture their interest. And that's what they're looking for, is that you're using that information to engage the students and know their learning needs and plan for them. But this piece is really strong. And like I mentioned, oops, doesn't want me to highlight there. It's in all of it. It's in cycle 1 as well. So that'll help you get there. And then their English language development for our so any students in your class, this information is about your whole learning group, okay? So for everybody, so the range of students, ELD or language, or ESN folks, that's the language ability, communication ability of your students. And ELD development is listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Those kind of things. And we'll talk about how to get to there. What are their identified learning needs? How many students in the class have IEPs, or in your group have IEPs or 504 plans? What does that look like? What is their literacy, knowledge, skills, and ability leading up to this? So in my gen ed class, I had a big range. I had kids who were above grade level and students who were 2 or 3 grade levels below. And so you want to describe that as much as you can. All right, Margarita.
Hello. I had a question. Sorry if there's still kids because I'm at work. If it sounds. Um, so I know when I did cycle 1, this is what I did for cycle 1, and I'm still in the same class, same kids, same thing. Can I just redo that all over again?
Yes, you can. You can pull that in. It actually says that in the assessment guides. So yes, you can use that same language. You can cut and paste paragraphs even because they're not looking at, plagiarizing yourself. It's fine. If that helps streamline, that's a plus for you.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Sure. All right. And the language of instruction, that's just kind of a one statement. This is probably not a full immersion or dual language class. It's a traditional class that it's English only, probably, I'm guessing. And then any staff members that are available to assist you, if you have any co-teachers or paraprofessionals in the classroom, you're just mentioning them, right? Or if you're working with the educational specialist, if you're a gen ed teacher, you're just mentioning them there, okay? Listing them. And then you're picking that is the same for ESN people, right? The only difference for you all is that I think it asks a question about their special education eligibility. Actually, no, that's just for your focus students. So let me not get ahead of myself. And if students in the class have IEPs, which obviously they will. So, all right, so now you're gonna pick a focus student. So who do you pick? You can pick any of these. It can be one or more of these requirements. That it's an English learner or someone who's been recently reclassified, sorry. Someone who the district is identified as having a literacy related disability, like dyslexia, for example. Someone who would just need extra support in making progress toward the ELD literacy or ELA literacy standards, or anyone who has a gap and kind of is not at quite a grade level in their foundational reading skills. And foundational reading skills are those phonics skills. That's the ability to decode words and sound them out, spelling, that sort of thing is what they're talking about there. Okay, primarily. At the upper grades, it could be the ability to read multiple syllabic words or do simplification, understanding prefixes, suffixes, or any of those. If you look at your standards, we're going to do that in a minute, you'll see what the foundational skills are. So if they're weak in any of those, you could pick them, right? Questions about who your focus student can be? And my ESN folks, they're probably all of those, right? So not hard to pick, not hard to find someone. You can just pick who you want. And it can be someone who is not verbal or someone who is verbal, doesn't matter. It's up to you. I have a cat in my lap. It will not get down. I keep putting it down. Sorry if it distracts you. It's distracting me. All right. And then what information do you need for your focus student? Same thing, the grade level and age, and those cultural assets and interests related to literacy or language. And then the literacy or primary, so this is interesting. They want to know the students' skills, literacy skills in their primary language. So if your student is family speaks Spanish and they learned Spanish, maybe they're came already having some education in their native language, what is that ability like in Spanish, if you know? And sometimes we don't test that. We don't always test that in our district. So you can ask family if they have some awareness of that, because they see the students primary language as an asset. So using their primary language to help facilitate their understanding of literacy in English is seen as a good strategy, not something we want to discourage. But pairing Spanish and English is using that asset oftentimes. So it's okay to do that. And then what's their learning challenge or IEP goal? So if this is a student who has an IEP, you'd certainly want to look up what their literacy, reading, writing, listening, speaking goals are, and record them here on this document. And then their learning needs related to English language development. And for our ESN folks, you can consider that communication development as well, right? All right, so the only difference, this is for educational specialists, and you'll notice everything exactly the same, except they really call out the IEP goals more here in language development. And then you have this, which is additional supports that the student might need. So behavior plan, orthopedic issues, medical needs that are reflected in the IUP that may impede their progress toward their ELD goals. So you're going a little deeper in their disability categories and their needs, but everything else is the same. Right? Makes sense? Okay. So what are cultural and linguistic resources? What are those things? I'm going to just stop here and let y'all help me out. What do you think they are? You can unmute, or I'll pull up the chat if I can find it. What is that thing? Cultural and linguistic resources. Yes? I know y'all aren't shy.
Would it be like translated material?
Okay, could be. Could be. So but these are more like resources that are in the students. The student asset, their cultural and linguistics assets of the student.
For students, traditions, maybe?
Yep, yep. Traditions, great. What if I say funds of knowledge? Does that help a bit? What are those? Because that's a different word for the same thing. What's a fund of knowledge?
Like what they bring to the table.
Yeah, that's what they call it, an asset or a resource. They're bringing this body of knowledge to the table, these interests or these experiences that they have. So here we're really looking at those positive things that the student knows, likes, does as a family, and they're expecting you to know the student beyond what you can see in the 6 hours that they're there with you. So it's not necessarily like, oh, you know, they're able to, draw and write during class. So that would be somewhat limited. You can say that, but what about their home life? That's really what they're getting at, as validating who they are culturally in their home life. So if we use the term funds of knowledge, it's a collection of knowledge based on their cultural practices that are part of the family's inner culture, work experience, or daily routines. It's the knowledge and expertise that the student and family members have because of their role in the family, communities, and culture. Okay.
I know like for cycle 1, I have a long lengthy paragraph for my students, but I did get into like their culture background. I had like 1 white student, 6 African-American, 12 Hispanic. I said it's considered a culturally diverse classroom. And then I also touched on like where they were born. I said Southern California and Native Californians except for blah, 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 blah. And then I got into more of like the city where they live in, the region. But then getting into the families, I put the school is located in a neighborhood with surrounding neighborhoods. It is close to shopping centers, the freeway. Students get to school either by being driven, walking to school, live close by, taking the bus. And then I mentioned the students' families, they celebrate holidays, such as the holidays that I know they celebrate. Some celebrate birthdays. I told them that the families seem to embrace family celebrations, seem to be tight knit. Most families seem to be Catholic, and a couple families are Christian. And reading parent surveys, because I did give my parents a survey. I told them, give me knowledge about your child in 1,000,000 words or less. So they told me a lot of things in that. And surveys, I learned about their extracurricular activities. Many students share that they play the sports, extracurricular activities such as coloring, drawing, arts, craft, all the things they like to do at home, and it's just so on and so on. And so that's pretty much what I covered in my cycle. So
Margarita, did you get your scores back already?
I passed cycle 1, first try, I passed,
Good.
so.
So you can use her expertise on that. That's good. And all of that, you have access, and we'll look at some folks who've passed well. And those are the kinds of things that they say beyond, and also students' interest, right? So if you're an ESN teacher candidate and you're only using one student, the very first part of the template is about the learning group. So you get to actually skip that and just talk about your focus student if you're just working with one student. But if you have a small group, then you're talking about the group, and then the bottom, you're going, more specifically into that one student. Okay. And the idea is that you not just collect this information, but you use some of it in your lesson plan. Right. So if the student is particularly interested in this thing, like Margarita just mentioned that they really like sports. So can you use some examples or reading material or something that's related to their culture or their interest that provides that universally designed for learning hook that helps the engagement, right? Because they're wanting to see those UDL strategies, which is using those resources and the strengths of the students, right? So here it is. If you look at the very first guideline for the UDL under engagement is welcoming interests and identities. So who are your students? They want to know that you know them and that you're valuing them and you're applying what they're learning to something that the student's interested in, right? So Veronica's working with high schoolers, right? And so what are high schoolers interested in? What do they need to know for life? And tying that learning about, reading the ads because they're going to be purchasing Christmas gifts or they're going to be doing something. It ties it to real life, which increases engagement, how they're going to use it, why they should care about it, all that, kind of ties it to their interest and value. And that they can see themselves in the material that you're using or the activities that you're asking them to do. Okay, so that will really strengthen your work. So let's brainstorm a minute. How can you gather this kind of information? Margarita already mentioned she sent home survey. That's one way. What's another way that you could gather this information?
Use our school, it's called Synergy. It's a program that we use where you have your student profile. And that's where I got all my information to see where they were born, things like, some of the stats. That's the other thing I looked at.
Yeah. Good.
And their CUME files as well.
Yeah. CUME files, teachers collect and write in the CUME files sort of notes about things and family interactions a bit too, interest, kind of who the kid is, good. As well as you would get a lot of their previous testing for English language development or the last year's testing for ELA and math in their CUME file. Their state testing is all in there. Roger, you have an idea?
I was going to say the IEP.
Yeah, exactly. IEP is going to give you lots too, right? Because hopefully a well-written IEP will also include some of these ideas of interest, not just the deficits, but yeah, exactly. Or we love when we talk about students and we ask families, what do you admire about your child? We did all y'all did a profile, so you actually did interviews with families. So that focus student, if he's still in your class, he or she will give you, you can pick them because that's a wealth of information you've already gathered. Or if you have an IEP coming up and you need to do it, interview pick that student because you have to collect some new information about them anyway. You're going to be doing some upcoming testing and talking to families. So you might as well kind of kill two birds with one stone, get to know a student that you are going to be assessing anyway and work on it. Yeah. Emily, you have fourth graders. How can you gather information from fourth graders?
I was thinking of doing kind of like similar, I could do like a survey that could go home with them, or even just a little get to know you. I was thinking about doing this week of a little paper that I can get off of like TBT or something like that, like just getting to know them more, just because I want to know their interests and all of that. I am getting to know the students even on the first day, but I feel like having that additional information will really help as well.
Yeah. Plus it helps to help you remember like who said
Yeah. There's a lot of kids.
kids, exactly. And since they're fourth graders, they can talk, they can write,
Exactly.
tell
Mhm.
you what they did this weekend. So a little morning opening sometimes, or what are you going to do this weekend? What does your family love to do together? That'll give you a lot of information directly from the horse's mouth, kind of what they're into. Yeah, good. All right. Then you're going to gather some information about their literacy knowledge and skills for the whole class or for your learning group. When I say whole class, that's what I mean. And be as specific as possible, thinking about the areas of literacy is speaking, listening, reading, writing. What are their skills already? What do they bring to the table? What have they been working on so far in the term or in the the last couple of weeks or last unit? What are they at grade level? What are the range of the abilities in the class? And again, some of that state testing will help you, or if they've done some midterm testing, things like iReady scores will often, if you run a report, iReady is so cool because it says the student is able to do blah, 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 blah. The next steps for learning will be blah, 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 blah. They need to work on it. So iReady is a great thing for students who are able to do that. And for our students who are really beginning at literacy, then it's, simple things like, are they able to identify sound, symbol recognition, letters, sounds that go with letters, CVC words, and you just kind of look at the standards leading up to literacy. Can they hear the sound, identify? Can they pick out of a range of three the correct letter that goes with what sound? So you can bring it down to whatever you need, but also thinking about, we just worked on this in our last course, that reading is also being able to comprehend what's being read to them. So even if they're not quite, they don't have the phonics and can't decode, are they able to comprehend the main idea of a story, characters, so reading comprehension and meaning making, as well as that phonics piece. So you want to be as thorough as you can about the skills of the students. And kind of word those in positive ways instead of saying, well, they can't do, say what they can do. And if it's a 16-year-old student and he can read CVC words, you also know that there's a deficit there because they should be reading, at multisyllabic words yet, or they're working on multisyllabic words. All right. So you might as well write it in sort of the positive thing. And so for your focus student, any assessment data that's been collected. And if not, if there's no formal assessment data, then what are your observations? What have you been able to gather? What functional reading does the student have? Are they able to identify their favorite restaurant, by the, what that looks like? Those kind of things can be really helpful, even if they're not quite literate yet. What does he or she know in all those areas? And remember, the literacy isn't only related to reading, although we do want to have that foundational skills there, that are building the capability to read, because we want to believe that everyone is capable of improving their reading skills. The other theme that you work on can be speaking, writing, listening, those kind of things, right? And done with support. How do you get this information? I already mentioned a few, but what do you think? Where can you gather it? Veronica, where are you going to go get this information?
I also have access to Synergy, and I know there I see all the test reports that are on there.
Okay, all right. And do your students take the alternative assessment from the state?
Yeah, but right now our school only does juniors.
Okay,
So some of the scores, if they're freshmen, I don't have that. If
yet.
they're seniors, I'll have their 11th grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
In Hume, would it have, I'm guessing that they also give that alternative assessment in a younger grade, do they? I don't know. It's been a long time since I've been in junior high and high school. Usually,
No, I believe in middle school they do it every all students, all grades.
yeah. So I'm guessing it might be a little bit old. So
Yeah.
gives you a place to start to see, okay, what have they gathered from there, since then? Is there something? And then there's I don't know if it's the LPAC, but there's an alternative I think that people are giving now. We'll go to Margarita and then Roger. Go ahead.
We use something like something quick that we do is the San Diego quick assessment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. These don't have to be formalized state ones.
Okay.
It can be for observation, your, reading list that you created.
Mm.
Margarita, what do you think?
So I'm a first grade teacher, so I have the littles barely learning how to read. But I assess them on reading on a program called Literacy Footprints. And so based on that, I'm able to get their reading level. I have many levels from my low kids, beginning readers to, mid where they should be. And then I got some outliers that are super high. So doing those reading assessments, I pretty much know where all those levels are. These ones, the lowest level are barely learning CVC words, letters, sounds. These ones already got sight words. My mid group has sight words, and now they're going on to more, instead of a simple sentence, going on to more text, and then so on and so forth. So I have those reading assessments, but also I use another program called ESGI for assessments. That's where I do my progress monitoring. And so on that program, you select the test that you want to test your students on. And so I just finished testing on we have progress reports due this Friday. So perfect time. I had just assessed them. And so on that program, ESGI, I test them on letter recognition, letter sounds, vowels, phonics, sight words. And so it gives me a whole pie chart with percentages on that program for the whole class as a whole, or I could see individually each student. So that's where I'll be getting my data from.
Good, excellent. Roger?
I was just going to ask because my kids are TK through second and they don't really participate in any of the assessments yet because they're still very young. But I guess I just kind of see what they can do in the classroom through observation.
Mhm. Yep, exactly. Then you're just going to use your teacher created assessment or your curriculum assessment that is either provided. And speaking of, you can use curriculum, right? You don't have to invent, from scratch lessons. Just you want to adjust the lesson so you're using that cultural and linguistic assets and interest. You can adjust it as well. But yeah, so go gather information, right? And same with the describing the English language proficiency, again, to be specific, think about those domain areas. If your student is nonverbal, then what are they able to understand? Receptive language versus expressive language. Are they able to do yes and no? Any signs? You know, even if they can't physically write down something, can they tell you what to write down or put words in order to create a sentence? Those kind of things that you're looking for. So, you know, where is the student strong in their level of communication, and where can you improve them? Like you want to take it a step further to aid them, all right? And where can we get this information? For the sake of time, most districts are now assessing students if they're English learners and they haven't been redesignated. Otherwise, so through LPAC or the alternative, I think it's LPAC still, is it? Yeah, not ZELT, LPAC. Okay, I've been doing this for a while. They keep changing the test name. But there's an alternative to that. And a lot of times you'll be describing their communication level, either verbal or in writing. And some of our students who are English learners are pretty good conversationally, and it's really hard to identify that they even are an English learner until you look at things like writing or academic language or higher level, you know, sentence structures, that sort of thing. So if your student is a beginning communicator, are they using simple sentences, single words, multiple? Are they turn taking? All those pragmatic things related to communication can also be addressed there. And if they have strengths in their primary language, then mention that too as a great asset. You can always pair, as I mentioned, the English and the Spanish to build the English. Okay. Let's look and see how you're going to be scored. Here is the level 3 score, which would be a good score. For our, this is everybody must do this. And this is a little add-on for our ed specialist. So it doesn't really change that much. You must include a strand standard-based ELA literacy and ELD goals that are grade level specific and developmentally appropriate for students. So if there's a big gap for our extensive support need folks, I would list, this is just my recommendation, I would list the grade level standard that you're working toward. So Veronica, you'll need to find a high school standard that's related to communication, speaking, listening, any of those kind of things. And then you can write the goal that's at their developmental level, but trying to stretch them, right, to the greatest degree that you can, right? But if it's not grade level, if you haven't listed a grade level goal, you'll get marked down. So we want to make sure you list that grade level standard and then an adjusted goal. And look, you have to use those assets and cultural and linguistic or interest in the lesson somehow, right? Integrate those and point out how you've done so in order to get a 3. And then you're going to be including the assessment, formative and summative, so that you can measure those goals toward the ELA and ELD goal. So you have to have the ELD goal must be somewhere in that formative and summative assessment as well. Whoop, sorry. And assessments align with one another to create a progression so that they're going from they're kind of systematically building on each other. And maybe you're introducing sort of that basic work at the beginning, but then you're getting, you know, it's a logical progression of getting them more and more independent at it, or you going up Bloom's taxonomy so that they're applying it. You know, maybe it's the beginning sounds, but now they're creating their own word that has that beginning sound, or identifying their own word that has that beginning sound. All right, so in this progression can be related to the foundational skills, or like meaning making, writing, the other themes that you're working on. And for our ed specialist, your plan includes collaboration with an instructional support personnel to assist the students in making progress toward. Now, here when I was an assessor for ESN, and this one piece I found challenging because if you're doing it with one student, you're probably not going to have the paraprofessional or someone working with you also, like 2-on-1. That wouldn't make sense. And so the most common response there was that your instructional personnel or other people in the classroom are helping, with your other groups, or you might be able to make the case that you're working with a communication specialist to speak into your lesson, that sort of thing. So as we look at that, your plan includes collaboration. I don't know when we get to the video if you're supposed to have that person on camera or not. I think they moved that out based on the feedback from the pilot. So that you have utilized the instructional support personnel doesn't have to be paraprofessionals. That can be communication person, a mainstream gen ed teacher, that sort of thing too. Maybe your ELD expert, psychologist, behavioral specialist, any of those people would be considered a support, right? So if you're using their strategies that they've recommended to you, I would just point that out in your lesson, okay? And then we already mentioned that your lesson plan, the 3 lessons, 3 to 5, will include foundational skills, another ELA theme. These are the other themes that can be found and described in the ELA framework. Meaning making, I think of that as comprehension, that you're understanding either spoken comprehension, a listening comprehension, or reading comprehension. Language development, that your academic language piece, that's also your ability to write effectively, or to understand how sentences are formed, effective expression, that's speaking and writing, and content knowledge is kind of like utilizing that in formative information to gain knowledge or obtain knowledge on a topic. All right, so you'll want to use your standards. You'll also want to have handy the ELD standard book, as well as the ELD frameworks. And the frameworks are really long and like seem intimidating, but it goes grade level. And so I would definitely look at those for your grade level to see what kind of instruction are they recommending? What kind of assessments are they recommending? Because it kind of gives you some tips on what they're wanting to see in there. So take a look at those frameworks in the next little bit, as well as your standards for your grade level, particularly for your focus student. Okay. And I think that is it. This week, you're gathering information for the next couple of weeks, and then you're thinking about what your standards and goals will be moving forward to be teaching these lessons at about week 4 to 5 is the goal. All right, so thinking ahead. And it is going to be asking you sort of prior knowledge about what you're teaching the students. So once you kind of zero in on this is the skill I'm going to be teaching my students, or these are the 3 things I'm going to be teaching my students, then you'll get more specific about their skills related to that, or what they've been working on related to that. Okay, so that's the first part of your task. Now, let me show you here. This is what you have, what I've given you. This is from another student before that I think did a great job during the pilot. You don't have the templates yet, but you have this form that basically asks all the questions we just walked through from the assessment guide. Summarize their reading proficiency level. And you'll see kind of how specific the student was about she cannot yet read CVC words. She knows this many of her sounds, you know, type stuff. All right. So it's pretty specific. And let's see. And then here's specific about what her assessments have been saying, her LPAC score, just be pretty detailed. And then this information is going to be taken just like it is and put into the template once we receive it. All right. So that's your skill or your task so far. Okay. Unfortunately, they ask, I don't know if they're going to amend the templates, but they ask questions. Like if you look at the first one, I don't know if I broke it down. I think I did break it down, but the first one is, how does the student's disability impact their literacy development? What additional needs or supports have been reflected in the IEP that may impact their development? And they ask like multiple questions in one prompt. Be sure to answer all of the prompt, right? Not because you can zero in on one piece of it, but they were sort of notorious for asking a bunch all in one thing. It's like, okay, break it down so that it's more thorough. Okay. Any questions? I'm going to stop sharing so I can just chat with y'all. What do you need to know to get started?
That sheet that you were just sharing, is that
Mhm.
yours? Is that something we can reference?
Yeah, it should be. Let me go to this was from last time, but let me go to your Canvas course now. Let me go back here. You should have that in week 1 or 2.
Okay.
We go to the LPA performance assessment documents and then modules. I believe it's this week. Oh, and here again here's the frameworks. Here's your list to all of the things that you're going to need. All of these 3 things you're going to want to be able to reference. And then
Can you
these extra
share
things.
your screen?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Sorry. That would help. I'm showing it and I'm not. Okay, so modules, ELD frameworks. You don't know where they are? Here they are. Standards, and then the Common Core standards. Our ESN folks, you can use the core connectors if that helps you too. You can reference those. These are just resources also we'll probably be talking about, but if we go down to I think it's week 2 now. No, maybe it's week 1. Hold on. Should have. Okay, here is the assessment guide. And yeah, here is that template that I just showed you. So if we go to multiple subject, for example, this is the one Emily's going to be working on. And you can just use this as of the place to answer. So it's a Word document, download it. This is about all of your students in your learning group. And the second, this is just a reminder about who you're picking. And then these questions are related to your focus student. Okay. And just begin to answer these questions, which I anticipate being the exact questions from the template. And ed specialists, you have the same thing. All right. And these will get the templates on the 23rd. So that's not too far away, but I want you to wait to start collecting this information.
That's what I was gonna say. So I know you're talking about the templates. So the old template's not of use anymore, the part A for cycle 2?
No, right. Cycle 2 is a different assessment. This is the LPA, right? That's the one you're working on, Margarita. Are you working
I'm
on?
working on cycle 2.
Okay, you're working on cycle 2. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
I had talked to you. I remember you were saying you were going to do it again in spring 1. That's why it was throwing me off. I'm like, no, there's a template for cycle 2.
yeah. Okay. So you're just a little bit early. I'm going to be going over cycle 2 templates at 5 to 6.
I thought it was 4 to 5. Look at that.
Yeah. No, this is LPA, which is very similar, a lot of the same information, and you helped our folks by being
Look at that.
okay, so that's great. But yeah, if you're not doing the LPA, which is you would have to, what's your credential area, Margarita? Your
It's multiple subject.
multiple.
Yeah, and I'm doing the littles.
Okay,
Yeah, I thought I read 4 to 5, but now I'm like, oh yeah, I think I did see 5 to 6 somewhere now I'm thinking about it.
okay.
So do I really need to sit in 5 to 6? It's pretty much the same getting to know your students.
Yeah.
And I already did cycle 1, so I have the gist of that. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Add overlap in these two things. Just this
So
one
is
is on foundational reading skills.
so for the next few Zooms for cycle 2, is it always gonna be 5 to 6 or is
Yeah.
it 4? Got it.
It's 5 to 6. LPA 4 to 5. Cal TPA cycle 2 5 to 6. There you go.
And you're not gonna have one next Monday for Martin Luther King Day, right? Or are you?
Does APU have it off? I don't
That's a
think
good question. I have no idea. I know I don't have work. I'm not working in the classroom. It's a
My
3-day
plan-
weekend.
it's on my calendar. And as far as I know, APU doesn't have that day off. So I'll be here. If y'all don't come, that's okay. If you're doing something else, I'll record it and send it out. It's okay.
Thank
But
you.
I have questions by then. All right. So this is the multiple subject one. If we go back, there's an ed specialist one that basically it's the same questions. There might just be 1 or 2 additional ones. All right. And then this week, you're also going to be reviewing explicit instruction because they want to know that you know how to teach using systematic explicit instruction for your foundational skills. So even though they ask you like, okay, what is your, instructional approach? They tell you based on the dyslexia guidelines that they want to see explicit instruction. So just do a little review this week of what that is. It is a direct instruction, breaking it down. Most of our lessons have been telling the students what they're going to be learning, guided practice, modeling, step-by-step systematic instruction is what they're looking for, especially when you're teaching phonics and learning to read, because that's what the research has said students need. Right. So this is, you have a couple of things that help you review what explicit instruction is in the modules. Right. So let me go back one more. Y'all can see yours. And then I'm probably having people come on in for Cal TPA cycle 2 now. So I will let y'all go. Here is the ed specialist one, ESN step 1. And it looks very similar, just a little different title. Yep. With a couple other questions in here. Additional supports, okay? So use the right one, start filling that out, and then you'll be turning that into me, I think, at the end of week 3 for me to take a look at. And if we have the template by then, I'll let you switch it over to them. But this will help you not be delayed while they get the templates out to us. Okay. All right. All right, guys. Thank you. I'm always here if you need me. All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Okay. I am going to stop recording so I can start again.